Of course, we've got some players like Solo Kasang, Salvi, and Brix, and Dasik to a lesser extent, all looking to really get some big wins in. Coco and Lelouch are currently our front runners by a considerable margin.
Both players start with L as well. Strange coincidence, but one that we have to think about.
Both bottom players start with S.
Oh, you're on to something now. Players start changing your names for next set. L is on the rise, S is going downhill. And also the point gap, 21 points for Coco, 20 points for Lelouch. And third place only has 15, which means that I'm not going to say Coco and Lelouch are guaranteed to be in Worlds already. There's still 3 games left, but they're in a very, very good spot as long as they get some amount of results in these next few rounds. And Double 61 Shop also can give him some great results. 3 Astrals, another Vlad pair to have there, and the Maul fight if you want to go level 4 to get the Bruisers online. A variation in an early game comp that I played so much when I was going for that Jade Whispers board. A great combination of Econ with Astrals and also board strength with the Bruisers online, especially if you 2-star these Astrals.
Now, of course, as Max was saying on the desk, while we did see that incredible last game from Double 61, they're still going to make up ground if they're going to be fighting it to be in first places. We've got a whole bunch of information flooding in. So we've got Mirage Spell Sword, Nomsy is Cannoneer, Soul Siphon is calling.
Cannoneer was played by Brix in Game 1. Had a good result with that Graves and with that Nomsy online. It was a 6 Cannoneer angle that was recently buffed, as has been 6 Guardian. But in the case for Double 61, we saw Coco playing Astrals last game, and now Double 61 saying, maybe it's my turn to do it. Maybe it's my turn to try and give this comp a go. And especially with this start as well, a pair of everything. One of the biggest problems with Astral now after that nerf in terms of getting more gold than units is 2-starring those units, and in this case, a much easier spot. But all of a sudden, the Augments are saying, Double 61, do you want to play Yone instead? Noel was able to get top 4 last game. Maybe you should try it out.
Well, I mean, to be fair, while going full Astral is absolutely an option here, for Double 61, they absolutely, they can still take the shifts off creds, just enjoy the extra money they get from playing Astrals, and also not even lose that much HP in the early game.
We see the Yone normally paired with Leona and Braum instead. Braum, of course, being also a 2-star unit you can roll with when you're rolling for Yone. But for Stage 2, maybe it's going to be Swift Shot Crest, but no. Double 61 says, I don't want to fall into some of the traps that other players fall to where they all start contesting the same units. I have a very good start for this. The game is telling me to play Astral instead. He's going to try and go down that route. But Brix does pick up Scoped Weapons and says, I do want to join the party.
It's a good thing as well, because we've got a lot of Astrals on their bench, but they won't be going down that route. Slamming in a Bramble Vest very early on, apparently respecting the power of not just AD, but crits as well. Good way to deal with them. So for Brix, they haven't leveled up. They're keeping their board, or rather their bench, nice and toasty with a whole bunch of units looking for upgrades.
Lots of pairs on that board, the units, not the fruit. And in this case, now we're going to see Ezreal's, Nidalee's as well. We're going to see exactly what route Brix wants to take. Although Lelouch seems to have a route already in mind. Dragonmancer, Cybernetic Uplink. This could evolve into a Dragon board again for Lelouch, who was able to play that board in that Game 3. But, I mean, Game 4 counterfeits so much on the line for these players. You can't take any risky lines like playing Soul Siphon, Rengar, for example. You have to stick to the essentials.
It's not a risk. Well, I suppose, looking to our larger situation at play here, we've got the two kind of different sort of paths for our players. We've got qualifying through to the Global Championship, and we've got becoming EMEA champion. Certainly Coco and Lelouch, they're in a position where maybe they get tempted by being able to join those extremely small amount of players who can call themselves EMEA champion, because once you go to the Global Championship, you may not get any championship at all.
Looking at the augments, though, for the rest of the field here, all pretty generic in terms of Thrill to Hunt 2, Celestial Blessing 2, Cybernetic Uplink, and Shell for different players. Cluttered Mind for Coco. Lelouch was able to pull it off to great success in the last game. Coco trying to emulate that in this game here. Really, Scope Weapons for Brix is only the more, I think, specific augment out of all the field that has been picked here. Maybe the 3-2 augments will give more clear-cut directions for these players.
It almost feels like a reaction to the previous game where everybody was better together. To say, you know what, we're going to swear off any augments that push us down a particular route and say, ceasefire, nobody plays them, nobody has to worry about being contested and tumbling out of the game.
Thrill the Hunt, we're talking about an augment that can lead to very interesting situations if you're able to get those procs off for Vlad and for the transfusion. Not quite enough here against the Kai'Sa. Solo Kasang takes Double 61 takes the hit there. And looking at the HP leaders in this Stage 2, the same as they were in Game 3. Salvi and Dasik both trying to play that win streak playstyle into Stage 3. Dasik last game fell off throughout Stage 3, but Salvi was able to keep it.
Well, I mean, to follow on to that, Salvi did incredibly well in the early game, but of course, things got really out of hand. At this point, it starts to make you wonder, maybe Salvi will be looking towards the later game, worried that the same situation will just happen a second game in a row.
Going into Lagoon, though, going to be able to get a lot of different components, gold, boots, all kinds of different rewards you get from this Lagoon trait, especially if you get the stacks on faster and faster. And Shiv will help you do that with a faster attack speed, generating more mana and more ults from Taliyah, who has a very low amount of mana to cast in the first place, so it definitely works out perfectly for this Lagoon trait.
I will see how well Salvi does. Certainly getting towards the backline pretty quick. You mentioned, of course, the Lucian with that cybernetic armplate, getting a few more casts off, but the board strength isn't quite there. Salvi stays on top. Day6 still undefeated. They'll, of course, be looking to continue to climb up as best they can. We'll see if they do manage to hold onto it. Right now, double 61 down the bottom with Solo. Bricks just above them. So no one's taken, the full open fort, but we're getting a little bit close to there for double.
Yone with a spatula. Whoever picked up weapons, I think it was Bricks. He's happy to see this happen here. He has a second pick. We'll see if anyone wants to take it away. Nope, Bricks says, thank you very much, Mr. Mortdog. I will take the Yone with a perfect spatula. All he needs is a bow to get that Swift Shot emblem online. Has the scope weapons as the augment already. If he's able to get another good synergistic augment in 3-2, he can maybe have a very good spot to go top 4 like Noel did last game.
Yeah, I do remember, of course, the days in TFT when everyone would bemoan the fact they got a spatula in the mail, but in this case, very much a different world that we live in. Let's see what we've got here. So we're visiting back with our Astral friends again. Of course, you'd love to be able to get up to 7 stars of Astrals on the board. That's where you start to get the real payout. But at least we've got one of the key components, which is going to be bringing out the big guy on the front line. We've got the mage close to popping off, but no lucks as of yet to really make this early game comp come together.
We'll see if Devil wants to keep this lose streak going. He's going to keep the Nidalee 2 online for now. Sometimes in some lobbies, you'll actually want to try and get weaker to guarantee the lose streak and guarantee more gold. In this case, Double 61 thinks he's still weak enough compared to the rest of this lobby. Doesn't want to lose HP for no reason. Wants to stay relatively healthy, especially because HP might matter. He was at 6 HP when he got that comeback last game. If he lost a little bit more in each of those fights in that early game, he might have been out before he could get that Nidalee 3. So going to keep it nice and safe here. And we're seeing here still a big loss against Bricks, who was able to get the scope weapons and that Yone online.
Yeah, I think the Nidalee having the sword there may be a little testament to how they are trying to at least kill one unit during a round to make those losses just a tiny bit softer. But Double goes down to the 70s already. Solo will join them there as well as Salvi rocks up the top, maintaining their win streak. One more round to get all the way to Crux and really cash in with that free gold.
It is strange how much of a deja vu moment we're seeing here. Salvi win streaking all the way almost into Krugs. Day6 almost win streaking but still lost one fight. Double 61, 8th place in the standings like he was in the last game. So hopefully the results turn out the same for Double 61 at the very least. He would love to get another first place off of a massive comeback, but we'll see if it'll be the case here. Salvi 1 away from the next Lagoon reward. And a good spot to be in with Electrocharge with a huge front line with that double Bruiser, double Guardian, Leona, Malphite, and Zac putting in the work while Taliyah slowly sneaks in some damage with a Shiv.
Yeah, and of course with the Lagoons, you're loving it when you can actually get the win streak going as well, because you're going to get in a ton of stacks, a ton of rewards, and of course build towards those 80 stacks where you'll get your first free component into the mix, maybe even go further than that. Up against Day6, who is jealously trying to hold on to the top of the table. Only one of these two will get to do so, and it's going to be a big win here for Salvi. That's massive. More money coming in, free money again from the Krugs, and keeping that win streak going.
And the biggest thing here, the biggest reason why this win streak is happening for Salvi, I think has to be the Electrocharge as the augment, an augment that you have to lean into with a strong front line, which is the case here for Salvi. Has that Leona 2, has the Zac, has the Malphite. In this case, if this looks unusual, it's not better together unit version. It is actually just trying to get as many Lagoon stacks as possible by putting in only Lagoon units, and hopefully trying to stall out the fight against these Krugs so there are as many casts from Taliyah as possible before you end up winning the PvE round.
And this is one of the things I've really liked about this particular set, is there are a little bit more to do in the PvE rounds. You can do these little optimizations which help you get a little bit further. In this case, it's right in front of us what this is benefiting from. So yeah, we've got very little damage from the rest of the comp. Every moment that passes, every cast that comes through is pushing just that bit further on. think Salvi is very, very happy with how the game has gone so far. Do bear in mind that Salvi is at nearly the bottom of the standings right now, so they do need big wins.
Ooh, some nice items here. Gunblade can be slammed on Talia if you value that at all at this game. I think not so much, better the late game, but Sunfire can be slammed for sure. Level 6 for Salvi, same thing as last game, trying to protect the win streak. And you mentioned the little mini games in the Krug rounds. I agree with you. My mini game is sacrificing my Olaf on the left and just letting him die every time. I'm sorry, Olaf, but I got you in stage 4 when I 3-star you.
Well, Salvi's main concern at this point has got to be Noel, who is climbing up the scoreboard themselves. They've got a 3-win streak, and as we check in what they're up to, it's actually something very similar.
Uh-oh. Is it Rock 3?
Oh no, where's the paper and the scissors?
Dwayne Johnson, The Rock in TFT. Incredible. I love this set.
We'll see how they do up against Bricks. Bricks currently in the middle of the table. We do get to see that the Gold Monster staff is live this game, and we know how transformative that can be.
Double 61, though, still bleeding a lot of HP. We'll see when he ends up turning it around. 64 now for him and Salvi. If he's able to defend his win streak all the way through stage 3, we'll be in a great spot. He couldn't do it in the last game. He lost somewhere in stage 3. We were quite following. But if he could do it this time, that's just so massive. For Noel, though, going to be a loss here. One of the big HP leaders drops down a tiny bit down to 86, 4th in the standings, where he finished last game. And Lakoko also near the middle of the pack with Solo Gasang. Silver augment, though, for us. Go. Thank you. Low variance. I love it.
Well, I mean, Salvi, I'm sure, is very happy that it's a low variance because, of course, they want things to stay exactly as well. They don't want a Prismatic to come in, flip the table,
Curse
and say,
Crown. You're doomed. It's over. You lose your win streak. Yeah, you're completely right. I think the players that are win streak, that are playing, they have more on the line in this exact micro moment of the game, want to have that low variance silver augment coming in. You're completely right, Peter.
So we've got the next challenger for Salvi's crown emerging here. Bricks has got their own win streak. This is very reminiscent of what we were seeing in previous days where people would have win streaks very briefly. I think it's because Salvi is the hurricane here that's extinguishing all these flames before they really get going.
Spatula for that player on the bench. I'm wondering what that's going to build for Noel. But Spatula also on the Yone, we saw it come off the carousel in stage 2. Still hasn't quite found that bow, but has found the Shimmer skill item of the game, which is Goldmancer's Staff. By far and away, decided by most players, the best Shimmer skill item when it comes to farming gold, which is what you want to do with this trait. You want to stay nice and rich and healthy as well in the process with a Volibear, or in this case, a Yone carrying the item. Trying his best, but in this case, the Rakan, the Disarm coming through, the Electro Charge from Salvi, especially the passive damage on the Yone, ends up getting a clean win, and Salvi still defends the win streak.
Yes, well, defends the win streak while also extinguishing another potential challenger. Bricks was win streaking, goes up against Salvi, drops down again. We talked about this so many times, the pressure that a win streaking player puts on the rest of the lobby, stamping on the speed everything's going to be happening. You can't put a win streak together if you cannot beat the guy on top.
Wondering where this is going for Solo Gasang, a player that has favored the Grave Seraphine comp in the past. Double Zeke's already built. Edge of Night on the Kaisa. Goldmancer's Staff as well. Could be leading into Graves. We'll see later on. Is holding a Zyra on the bench, so it's a possibility for sure. Guardian Heart, though, one of the augments that I think has gained the most in popularity and play rate and stats overall when it comes to how highly it places in some of these lobbies, is picked once again by 2 players, both Bricks and Lakoko.
And this is really kind of fascinating because, again, we saw what Nyla does to those kind of shielding compositions. It's really amazing to see that it's still going to be something that people are valuing quite as highly as they are. Bricks, of course, we saw before trying to put their win streak together, will now have to face up against Solo, who's not quite the bottom player. The Luch is tied for them there, but we've got a good board. Of course, the big problem for Goldmancer Staff is you do need to get the kills in if you're going to get paid.
Big problem for Bricks, though, is finding a bow. He's not currently anywhere close to first in priority for the carousel coming up. He needs to hope that players aren't going to value that bow too much coming to the carousel to try and get that Swift Shot emblem online for the Yone right now. The win, although great, of course, does not let him bounce down in the HP total, which some players sometimes do on purpose. They lose before carousels. Small losses are almost a blessing in disguise because you get the priority. There's a bow on Zaya that seems appealing if anyone is contesting or trying to go for Zaya at all. Lelouch, don't do it to him. Okay, Lelouch just walks by. He's just taking a stroll, getting those, flexing those leg muscles that are so important on these little legends. And the bow does end up going to double 61. Takes it away, and Bricks will not have the Switch Shot emblem as easily as you would have hoped.
Yeah, that's kind of impressive considering we've got actually a ton of players, 4 different players who all have spatulas, and yet that bow goes to one of the players who doesn't have a spatula. So thank you for your service there, taking that one out of circulation. We can live for a few seconds longer. Salvi, though, on an 8-round win streak, they are totally undefeated in this game. the Karma providing the damage from the backline, but presumably, we've been spending a lot of money on keeping this win streak going. Something's got to give eventually, and last time it did, Salvi plummeted down the table.
Double 61 is rolling. He's found a pair of Siphons. A Siphon 2 would really stabilize him at this point in the game. Finds an Idas, finds an Nasus 2 as well. Can get Shimmer Skill in if he wants to, but has a Yone 2 already with the Thieves Gloves and the Olaf as well. A very interesting mixed matchy comp, but no gold for Double 61. Has to find a way to get a cohesive board online for stage 4 and a strong board to econ back up, because right now the bank is not looking too hot for him.
No, and up against Salvi, you know that another L is coming their way, most likely. Bear in mind, though, this is still a Karma that is providing most of the damage to the competition. So at some point, they've got to give ground. We have still got the Yone managing to get on to our friend Kaiser, who does have a Hextech Gunblade, and we've got the Kaiser stacking up as well. I think this might finally be the end of Salvi's streak. As I said before, once they stopped streaking, they got into big trouble. We'll see if this game is any different.
Still a very, very big streak all the way to 3-5 is a lot of gold you generate just with that streak gold as well, and a lot of HP you preserve from, well, not losing HP at all until that moment. You haven't lost a single fight. Double 61 has to start winning a lot of these fights, though, and has to find a miraculous Siphon to upgrade if he wants to stay stable, or just decide that Siphon is just a temporary unit to have on the board for now. Maybe it is a better idea to put an Idas and get Shimmer Skill to get that econ back up instead. Lelouch, though, has found the early Deja, has Uplink, has the Cybernetic Shell. Maybe a Cybernetic, a more Cybernetic Augment coming in. As we were talking about before, Peter Counterfeit, the augments are kind of tailored towards the board you currently have. Sure. Cybernetic is one of those. The more you have your items spread out, the higher chance you have of getting another tier of Cybernetic in the next augment choice.
What I'm finding fascinating about the way Lelouch is approaching this game as well is we know we've got two players with a Guardian Heart. In fact, we're seeing one of them, Bricks, actually taken to the field. I'm finding it fascinating that Lelouch actually decides to go for Guardians as their frontline as well, knowing that they're going to be heavily contested.
It just goes to show how different the meta is right now compared to the start of 7.5. Bruisers was the hotness. You had Skarner, obviously, with Astrals early on. And then overall, Guardians just weren't valued very highly. But now it's so different. The buff to the trade itself, sure. But the units revolving the big meta comps. You have Yone, Leona, and Braum fit perfectly. You have, obviously, Braum because of Warrior with Olaf as well. Nasus because of Shimmer Skill. He slots in. Idas being quite strong now with Shimmer Skill being good. So all these different regions came together to the fact that many players are now playing Guardian frontline instead of Bruisers or any other frontlines that we've seen earlier in the set.
I suppose it does mean that we'll be having them get to their 2 stars a little bit more slowly. Lelouch in particular, you've got this Idas frontline, which I'm sure they'd love to be able to get up to 2 star. But at least for the time being, we've got the gold masters on the Deja. We've got the potential of racking up a lot of gold in a hurry. Let's take a look at the flavor of the lobby right now, or the temperature of the lobby. Solo is down at the bottom with 34, Lelouch and the Coco down towards 50. We've got a midfield around 60 to 70. Salvi, of course, no win streak anymore, but still maintaining position. As, of course, we do need to watch out in this lobby for Numsy, because Dasic has just made it immediately relevant.
You're saying midfield, and I'm imagining a football match with TFT units. My brain is going somewhere else.
I am English after all.
I'm gonna talk to some Riot people, see if we can make this happen. A football game with units from League of Legends. That could be something. That's an idea right there.
All right, copyright right now.
Another idea though is Solgasang having to find his way out of this 8th place. He's currently 8th in the general standings as well, with only 9 points after 3 games, and is currently sitting 8th place right now with 34 HP in this game. A big fight here. Solgasang has to stay alive, but he's facing Lelouch, a player that I think is fairly strong now with the Rage Blade, the Gunblade, and the Goldmancer Staff onto this Deja. The Grave still alive, Edge of Night. The Hand of Justice Slam here as well with the Giant Slayer. Will it be enough? The Wind Blast coming through. All the units are lined up, but everything is starting to die here for Lelouch. One more Wind Blast can maybe do it, but the Graves is now onto the Deja. The healing is coming in from Gunblade, but maybe it's not quite enough, and Graves gets the win. Solgasang stays healthy in this stage 4.
Still, it's a very rough spot for Solgasang to be in, as of course Makes had to point out, which must have been quite painful, the German players both at the bottom, as much as the French players are definitely trending upwards. Still, we've got our last augment coming in, and we've got the chance to try for something a little spicy.
Hallucinate was maybe a consideration, but no, it will be paid to win, which is something you don't normally want in competitive games. Thankfully, this is just the augment name and nothing else.
Yes, I think very confusing when it was first reported about. People started freaking out about it, but yes, just a big boost of bonus damage. Of course, with that gold monsters on the line, once the gold's in pocket for Lelouch, which it isn't right now, but once it is, that is going to be a massive amount of damage from Deja, and presumably, perhaps even a late game dragon.
Would be a great opportunity for any sensationalist, newspapers or websites. You can say TFT is now pay to win. Just
they did that. They did that.
Oh no! This is the reality, the absurd reality we live in. Unfortunately, Peter, that was a joke, but apparently, sometimes life does imitate art. In this case, Kaisa, Goldmancer staff, Gunblade, and JJ. We've seen this before early in the day with Dasic with that crazy golden ticket game. In this case, not as Hyrule. I think there's no prismatic augments. And Lakoko is someone that I believe yesterday on Game 5, he was also playing the Kaisa reroll, one of the few players that likes this comp and values it in these high-pressure games.
Yeah, we were certainly expecting to see a lot more Kaisa being used as an item holder, therefore making the reroll not so good. But for Dasic, we noted the Nobs is coming. It's going to be the Cannoneer variant this time round. So that is a whole heap of damage. Talk about Guardian being buffed. People were still not playing Cannoneer, so you know what? Let's take that number and make it even larger.
Namzi was not getting the love that she deserved only in the mage variant, and even then, people hated it because she just delete boards randomly. Even the players that are playing her didn't like it so much sometimes, but in this case now, Cannoneer comes into the meta. Evoker, not so much yet, but at least now we're seeing Bricks in Game 1, finding success with that Cannoneer 6 game, and now Dasic, one of the best players in EMEA that doesn't go into a comp if he doesn't know exactly the results it can produce, is also deciding to again, rely on this comp as a comp that can maybe get him up in the standings, currently 5th right now.
Yeah, so very much middle of the table, but I do like this composition. Of course, we've also got the Ricochet, I believe, coming in there as well, so we're going to be able to spread the love a little bit around. We've got the 2 Ophelii, as we call them, in the wild, putting out a good amount of damage from the back line, though, of course, the big problem this comp is going to have is the front line isn't tremendously strong, so you get into these situations quite often where you go face-to-face, damage dealer versus damage dealer. The cannon shots are good, and while Lelouch takes the gold, Dasic takes the win.
So close, but not quite enough. Looking at those third augments that did come in, it was a Ricochet, as you mentioned, for the Cannoneer comp. We see Standing United 2, a very good comp for Locusangs, Graves, Seraphine board. Overall, pretty generic augments. We see Guardian Crest picked up again. Ooh. The Guardian emblems, or the Guardian augments in general, working out for most of these players. One specific augment we're seeing here is Noel, who picked up High Tide in this 4-2 stage.
I mean, just to go back to Bricks there, it's almost too much to even point out that we've got a player called Bricks who's playing a comp made out of brick walls. But, I mean, I believe they've got 8 Guardian online right now. And again, we talked about the buffs coming in for Guardian. That's a world of shielding. We've already established, of course, before, Nyla is always to deal with that. But I wonder if there's a point where the shielding becomes so ludicrous that even that countermeasure is not enough.
Before anyone gets too excited, this is a Guardian. It is a frontline trait. It is the vertical trait that's hard to get to, but it isn't quite what Bodyguard was in set 6. That was the Exodia comp that we saw actually win Worlds from our Chinese player Liluo, who was able to get that 8 Bodyguard online and just steamroll through that competition, through that lobby. In this case, it's strong, but not that strong.
So interestingly, we've actually now with Double 61 also picking up a Guardian Crest. We've got Bricks, of course, who's managed to hit Guardian 8. Double 61 now competing with Coco.
The Rock 3.
Oh my gosh,
the Rock 3.
Rock 3 has arrived. The sequel that we're all holding out for. Solo has also grabbed themselves a friend in a 2-star Graves. Let's see how Salvi is doing. Still up at the top of the table against Bricks with all the shields in all the world. It will take a long time to get through, but something I'm noticing from Bricks' side of things, of course, we don't have that Reliant Soul, that inevitability that the shields will pay off in ultimate destruction.
Yeah, you need maybe something that's more reliable as a damage carry. You have the stalling, it's already done. You have 8 Guardian. There's few things that are going to stall more than that, so you can itemize the right Guardians in this comp and 3-star them ideally. But you need to have that great way to deal damage consistently, which Acel usually is. Zeri, not so much the case.
No, and as we saw there, it was a long round, but it wasn't a round where you were actually getting very many kills at all.
It's the Rock. Where is it?
All right, let's see it. Yes! Put the Thieves' Gloves on there as well. We're time to run down everybody. Well, TFT, of course, looking to try and make as much of an impact as possible. Currently 3rd in our standings, so still within reach and potentially challenging for the title of EMEA champion. We are getting pretty damn far into our final day of play here. Only 2 more games after this, and at that point, with a little bit of tiebreakers potentially aside, we will know who our champion is.
Challenging the title of EMEA champion, but also challenging the title of most accomplished Hungarian player. Trying to take it away from Shadi, who had a fantastic set 6. making it all the way to LCQ and being oh so close to making it to Worlds. In this case now, trying to not take any chances. He wants to go directly to Worlds, wants to finish among the top 5 players in today's Day 3. Dasic, though, someone that has to try and climb back up. Had a bad result in Game 3, currently sitting middle of the standings here at 36 HP. But a huge gap between pretty much everyone in Salvi, who had that win streak in Stage 2 and 3, and looks like most of Stage 4 as well, considering how healthy he still is.
Yeah, and I suppose this is the difference we've seen in this game. Last time, Salvi lost their win streak and started plummeting down. This time, while they don't have another win streak brewing, they are taking some very light losses as we will head across to the Treasure Dragon. Of course, that means we're going to be seeing ourselves some Radiant items coming in, but if you want to, of course, pick yourself up some Radiant prizes, there will be a link in the chat to the page. You can do that. Again, you do not need to type in the command AMD to enter. In fact, that will do nothing at all. You just need to have one person do it. You'll see the link in the chat, follow that along, and you'll have all you need.
Zeke's Harmony, yes please. We have the remover as well in case you found something great for the Graves. You could remove something and then add maybe a Titan's Vow, for example, but instead, going to go for the Zeke, which is, again, it essentially is a, well, 4th, 5th, and 6th item for the Graves, alongside the Stand Unite, alongside the Celestial Blessing that gives him even more healing. And this Graves will be a menace to society all throughout this Stage 5 as we're leading into it after this PvE round. 5 win streak for Solo. We said he needed to stabilize and needed to find ways to maintain that 34 HP. He's done it. He streaked all of Stage 4.
Yeah, I mean, for Solo, of course, they're the player most starkly who's not worried about becoming EMEA champion right now. They're worried about getting out of last place. That very, very tough situation to be in. We'll see how Solo does. Again, we've got the Radiant Zeeks, which will give a little bit of Omnivamp and a load of attack speed. We've got the Edge of Night to keep our Graves up and fighting the Lush. Hopefully with a little bit more goal behind them. Nope, not at all. We'll be fighting here with our friend Deja. Good stun onto the majority of the squad, but the damage is being spread across. And as you can see, Graves is not taking enough damage that they need to. We do have Deja targeting them though. I think the Edge of Night is about to proc, which means they will be retargeted. Graves isn't quite doing as much damage as maybe they need to. That Radiant Thieves Gloves on the Idis is stalling out for so much time. Graves is attacking so fast, but he's just not punching through.
Yeah, the Rascal Gloves, one item. The Demon Slayer, not so great, but the Rapala Stone Plate, that's a mouthful, not a handful, but maybe a handful as well, considering how heavy it might be. But a mouthful definitely to pronounce. Definitely worked out there for the Idis. You gave him a lot of different stats, armor, especially in that case to survive. Just the onslaught from Graves is quick draw. Stalled enough time for Deja to get the win.
All right, let's, again, look through our lobby. Coco and Solo down in the teens. Dasic just above with Bricks as well. Alush down in the 20s. Double is on the win streak. Salvi has started to drop from their perch. Of course, Salvi, like Solo, needs to pick up a strong finish here if they're going to have any chance of getting up towards the top of the table. Let's see how Coco does up against Dasic's Cannoneers, though.
Felios being targeted. Tempered Fate comes in for the bar, but doesn't quite line up with Deja's Wind Blast. Deja now falling dangerously low. The Gunblade slowly healing her back up. Will it be enough? Felios gets one last blast out. The Deja's still alive, though, but stunned.
Ooh.
Thanks to the Felios, and that means it's bye-bye for Coco. But maybe the only player that could maybe take the 8th tier and not feel too bad. Currently, the leader in the standings. In the HP, definitely not.
No. I mean, the ricochet there from Dasic, doing something that Cannoneers oftentimes have trouble with, which is accessing the back line. As we check in with Lelouch, who is the player who now is heir presumptive to the throne, 1 point behind Coco coming in. If they can get a strong finish here, they will most likely take the premier spot.
And trying to get that gold up, getting some value from the Gold Master staff onto that Deja. But we're now on to Bricks. 6 HP, has the Radiant blue buff on the Aesol. We talked about the A Guardians. We talked about needing to find the Aesol, the damage carry. He's done so, and he has a great item on it as well, thanks to that Chaos Dragon that came in earlier on. But Aoshin on Salvi's board, a player that has cybernetic uplink, has blue battery, and has electric charge to be great combat augments. Will it be enough, though? Aesol casts more often, more consistently, but this front line's looking meaty on both sides. Aoshin, the Lightning Rain, finally going to come through. A cast with Rabadons, with Giant Slayer, with the Gunblade as well, healing up the front line. Not quite enough to decimate the entirety of the board. Aesol so slowly ramping up the damage as well on the black holes. The casts are coming so often, Peter, with the blue buff. Aoshin trying to do it. The Gunblade healing everything up. The Battle of the Dragons, but Aoshin will take the hit, and Aesol, the dragon that most players now prefer, wins the fight.
Well, I mean, that's the difference. This we saw before. You know, and in this circumstance, if the Guardian Emblem hadn't been there, that Aurelion Sol was all kinds of
Mystic.
dead. Let's
Yep.
throw Mystic as well. Let's pump up the value of those shields. I think we're going to be seeing some real heavy push up the table here from Brix, who is currently, again, in its 6th place overall. We've got a real clump of players from 4th all the way down to 6th, barely separated in points at all.
Mystic, one of the best performing emblems in the game, and for obvious reasons, usually the units that have Mystic already are units you want to play in the late game. Bard, Rakan, Shio Yu, all fantastic units. Seraphine, of course, one of the stellar 3-cost in the current meta, but also because of this lobby. AP all around. We have 2 Deja players, 1 Asol, 1 Aoshin at the very least, and maybe more that I'm not remembering right now. But overall, you want to have that Mystic 2, 3, or 4. You want to have that extra resistance to magic damage.
All right, let's check in with Solgasang. So they are staying alive. Brix is a potential next opponent. Noel, who is on the win streak, is another, and double their final choice. Not a situation that I would certainly want to be trying to get myself into when you need to get a strong finish here in a game. And number 4, it will be up against Brix. We know inevitability is here. I do like the Radiant Blue buff. Just for, while we've got the late game ascended version of our friend Asol, we can get in these multiple casts early to maybe take a unit out. The casts are coming in again and again. Solo is chunking through the front line. The shield is going to get procced on Aurelion Sol. Finally, the big cast comes through, but it's not looking like it's enough. Graves, the DPS is just crazy. One more cast. The shield is here, but the damage is just not enough. And that will be the elimination. Brix gonna fall down and crush everything.
Dies of cutscene, dies of cringe. Brix takes the 7th place, a player that was 6th in the standings, so definitely a player that you don't want to see taking that 7th place in this point in the tournament. 2 games left after this. Not too much to work with in terms of trying to ramp up to that 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st spot to try and get to Worlds to be one of the representatives for EMEA. Solgasang barely alive. Dasik on Cannoneer barely alive as well. And just a big gap now between these 2 players. Lelouch also at 11, and then Salvi at 29, who has fallen a bit off of that 1st place in the HP.
Let's see how Dasik does. We have got the Radiant Edge of Night, which means you get to go into those invincibility frames twice over a round. So if you thought it was hard to get rid of Graves the first time round, it is doubly so. No amount of CC removal though. So we do have the Dragon's Claw. That is a very beefy Graves, but giving up some damage, relying on the 3-star affiliates on the back line to make up that difference. Graves barely survives. That's a big hit in. So switch across and check out, will Solo survive any further?
Lelouch, I think, is going to get the win here. That's going to be the case, and Solgasang takes the loss. Germany, in this case for Solgasang, down in 6th place. Salvi currently sitting at 3rd place. Both German players coming into this game were 7th and 8th in the standings. Had to find good results. Salvi is finding the way. Our first GSC champion in this set is trying to fight because Lumarpin and Skepeyes did not make it to day 3. He's our only remaining GSC winner to still be fighting for a spot in Worlds.
So as we can see on the right-hand side, thanks to BlitzGG, we've got ourselves a whole bunch of Dragons of Brewing. You can see Double 61 and Lush bring out the Idas front line. We can see we're at the kind of point of the game where the Deja carry is still in place rather than the late game at Aurelion Sol. So there's still a chance for our friend Dasik, who's on the Cannoneers, to make some impact, but it still feels like a comp that is going to cap out at top 4.
And if you're wondering, why does Lelouch have so much gold when he's sitting at only 11 HP, it's because he's trying to keep that gold for Goldmancer's staff until he has enough to make a difference to actually try and upgrade his board, and that might be the case now. Goes level 9, has 30 gold to work with. Has to decide, is it worth going for a full pivot? Do I have time? Are there dragons left in the shops even to hit, to try and get 2-starred? Maybe not. Maybe just goes 9, gets 1 more unit in, gets a bit more of a buff off of that 9th unit coming in, and tries to keep some gold in the bank still to get some value from the Goldmancer staff, get some more AP on the Deja.
Of course, we know the Aurelion Sols have already somewhat been spoken for, so maybe we're hoping to find an Ao Shin to move these items across to. There's always the question of whether or not you're making your board weaker when you do so. At least we've got some backline access, and of course, as you mentioned, the Goldmaster staff partially charged here with a bunch of extra AP. Unfortunately, we have got the Asol who is healing up, though not doing a ton of healing right there. Ooh. So I think it may be good enough. Let's switch across to what Salvi and Dasik are up to. Ooh. And Salvi will go down. So that's going to be Germany going out in 5th and 6th. The situation they did not need. They had to be picking up first here.
puts both sub and solo in a tough spot to make it to Worlds directly. And now some of these players have to start shifting their focus from those top 5 spots to the 6th and 7th. All you want is not to be 8th. 8th place goes home, not empty-handed. You get some money still at the very least, but you do not get a chance to continue your TFT season for this set 7.5. You do not get a chance to fight for a spot at Worlds in the Western LCQ.
Well, I mean, just to go further on that, the journey these players have taken to even get to this point is enormous. They fought through, even at just this event, 2 full days of play. To have that end in nothing at the end, we said it again, we'll say it so many times as we need to, it will be an absolute heartbreaker. Dasik, one of those players looking to try and punch their way up the table. Noel does have themselves a very, very strong Soam on the back line. We have, of course, got the Rock in attendance here today with some very good frontline items. Maybe too much. We're relying entirely on the Felios, and it works! Punching through the last Whisper, just what was needed.
You thought it was over. All of a sudden, Graves and Aphelios tell you, no, no, no. We're on 6 Cannoneers. We recently got buffs. We can get things done at this point in time. And Dasik knows this. There's no reason why he would go for this pivot. Instead, Lelouch takes a 4th place. He was sitting 2nd in the standings, though, so not the end of the world for him. Will still maintain himself among those top 5 players. Noel in a very similar position. But someone else we have to talk about is Double 61. Started off 2 first games in this day 3 looking, pretty poor for someone that we expect so much from. One of the, I think, historically the best player in EMEA in terms of results, a world champion. Only a few players can say that, but already currently sitting in a first place position, trying to get 2 back-to-back wins.
Well, I mean, makes through down the gauntlet, and apparently Double 61 is willing to take it up and take on all comers. Certainly, as I said, a disappointing start, but a solid play here. So Guardians, again, the flavor of the moment. Noel is going to try and take shelter behind that big rock. Double Ionic Spark, maybe a little bit more than necessary, but it will allow for a little bit more magic damage. We see the Soam chunking through as the tanks try to deal with each other. Nyla is stealing those shields like crazy. The Guardian debuffer herself is hop, skipping, and jumping. This could be a real bad situation. Another shield comes through, but Nyla is dead. And standing amidst the wreckage is the Danger. Down goes Noel.
And Dasik trying to stay alive at the Graves, trying to fight for Dasik, but it's not going to be the case. Double 61, back-to-back wins in games 3 and 4. What a fight at the end there between Dasik and Double 61. My 2 favorite players, I think the 2 players that are strongest in this tournament. And Dasik especially needed to fight for some points in this game 4. He was 5th in the standings coming into it, is now cementing himself among the top 5, but especially the story here is Double 61, who started off with an 8th, then a 6th,